All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to SoundlinkTV here on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, primarily Facebook. So if you're anywhere else, welcome. Today we have a very special guest. We have Aaron Sprinkle, who is a very accomplished producer and a musician and a composer as well. He's got a lot of stuff going on. We're going to talk about that and what he's done with his career and all that cool stuff. Aaron, how are you doing today, man? Yeah,
Can you hear me
yeah, there we
now?
go. Yeah, cool. Okay.
Sorry, I inadvertently muted myself. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So when we're doing these things, I like to kick off with, asking everybody, as a creator whose career has been impacted somewhat by this virus, by the quarantine and stuff. How's that impacted you? You're an artist as well, but you don't do any touring really, but you're more,
hmm
you do a lot of producing and stuff. So how's that impacted you as a creator in that regard, with this whole like pandemic and stuff?
Yeah. Well, it honestly, it hasn't really impacted me that much. From from that standpoint, the thing is I actually did plan on sort of trying to take a stab at touring. Uh, Really, I guess I keep wanting to say again, but I didn't ever really tour before. My old band did a little bit in the early '90s, but I'm working on a new solo record right now, and I was gonna kind of have a go at playing out, which I haven't really done for a really long time. Um, so that's the only thing is my plans have been thwarted, at least postponed for the time being. But I work at home. I have worked at home for years, anyway, and have been working, remotely even on records since way before any of this stuff happened. And I don't do as many records anymore as I used to. So honestly, not that much. I will say though, it has affected me because my wife is a school teacher,
Mm.
um, and I have a 13-year-old in the house still, and she's teaching remotely and my son is doing school remotely, so we're
Mm.
all in the house, and we're actually having to move some stuff around this weekend because I'm too close to my wife's office, and if I make any noise it disrupts her sixth grade social studies class. So
There you go.
yeah.
Yeah. Have you gotten enough family time, or are you ready to keep chilling with the fam? Or are you ready to get out of there? Because I know spending time with the family is always cool and stuff, but you kind of need that middle break and stuff. I mean, our producer Josh over here, he's got a wife and some kids now, so I'm sure he can relate working to home. So I mean, like, have you had your fill with family time, or are you just still like just straight chilling and okay with all that?
I think that we sort of naturally, settled into a routine where we, give each other space, um, because it's necessary. You know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. And now that school started, um, it's, kind of forcing that as well.
Okay. Now let's talk about your career a little bit. What you've done in the past and where you're going now, as you are involved with this really cool new website and stuff. I guess going back to the beginnings and stuff, like what attracted you to becoming a music producer? Because I think when you look back on especially the mid 2000s and stuff of all the bands, you had Joey Sturgis with Rise Records Association, who basically made all those metalcore albums, and then you were over here with the Tooth and Nail side, doing the more like alternative rock, emo stuff,
hmm
and
hmm
and all of that. And so, when you go back to those producers from that time who kind of like broke these bands, who made a name for themselves, I would put you on that list with some of those other guys. And so, I guess going back to that, getting to that scene and everything, walk us through that the early part of your career and when you noticed, I guess it's starting to this scene, if you want to call it that, started to pop off, somewhat into the mainstream.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is when that stuff started kind of clicking for me, I had already been making records for about 10 years. So, and I kind of just found myself in that scene. It was not a scene that I was really familiar with, to be completely honest. I was attracted to some of the aspects of it, and it ended up kind of being a thing where, I mean, honestly, I started producing records for labels in 1993, when I was 19 years old. And they weren't very good, but I was doing it. But so by that time, I felt pretty comfortable making a record in a studio.
Hmm.
And it was more about working on projects that I felt passionate about and excited and felt like I could, bring something to the table that the artists would walk away feeling really excited about it. And honestly, I would say as far as that scene goes, the way that I fell into it is kind of interesting. Is in 2001 when I started working at the studio that Brandon Evil owned. Um, when I first started working there, I did a few projects right off the bat, just kind of based on some friendships and connections that I had been making. I had taken a break from producing for a little over a year, and had a job at a software development company, video game publisher, actually, is what it was, but doing graphic design. And when I came back, I did a record for this band, Waxwing, who was Rocky Votolato and Sonny Votolato's band. Sonny's from Blood Brothers, and Rocky's a just phenomenal solo artist. Did that, and then kind of through that scene, did a Gatsby's American Dream record. Did this band Time to Fly, um, and worked on some other kind of. This was all local, very indie stuff.
Hmm.
And then kind of through all that, I got connected with Acceptance and did their first EP. And that's really the thing that kind of the ball. Those were all part of it, but Anberlin heard the Acceptance EP, and then they wanted me to do their debut record, and then it all just kind of spiraled from there. And obviously, my relationship with both of those bands, Acceptance and Anberlin, ended up being very
Hmm.
long-standing relationships. Acceptance, being actually the only artist that I'm even kind of currently working with right now.
Yeah, the new EP you did with them is really good. I love it. I love that
Oh,
EP.
thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so like seeing the bands like Anberlin and Emery when they had the question, and then
Yeah.
even the Almost start popping off
Hmm.
like that. Seeing those records do with your name on it doing so well, those bands getting so big. Like what was going through your mind? Like how do you like just think about that? You're like, oh wow, this record is doing this. This band is blowing up like this. Like this is insane. So like as a producer, someone behind the scenes, putting your touch on it like that. And in your mind, what's your thought processes when you see a record or a band do so well like that?
Man, it's so funny because I I just have I was not really aware of it. I wasn't able to really wrap my head around it. Probably for a few different reasons. I've thought about this since, at the time I was, excited about the record I was doing, whatever record it was that you're mentioning here, along with other, there was some really good success with Dead Poets, Dead Poetic,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some other bands too, but um I'm in it so deep when I'm making the record. It's like my whole world. Like I'm not, I'm kind of neglecting everything else. And then it's like here, sending your child off into the world to do it what it does. And then you just are on to the next project. So I wasn't really, I mean, I would hear, the first week, back then it was like first week numbers was a big deal. And
Yeah.
like, and I would hear, bands doing well and, see, obviously success of, these bands, but it didn't really affect me at the time at all. Like that was tangible to me at least.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously it affected me in the sense that it caused, it was the best promotion for other bands to be interested in working with me, for sure. But I didn't think about it. It wasn't something, my ego didn't get inflated from it or anything like that, to my knowledge. I mean, I'm sure it did a little bit, but even when people say, I was on Bad Christian just last week, and they were talking about, iconic, legendary, pretty, and I don't think of myself in that way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And I really found, I learned so much from all the artists I worked with, and became, some of these guys are family. The guys in a lot of these bands are literal. I consider them family.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
officiated weddings for some of them. Like so it's so much more personal to me, and so much just a part of who I am as a human, and as a creator, and as a musician, and all that stuff. Looking back on it now, though, I can see what an incredible time it was. Of course, in hindsight, it's easier to see that stuff. And, part of me wishes I would have been more aware in the moment and been able to celebrate it a little bit more, but I don't know if that would have helped anything or not.
Yeah. So I really don't know. I've talked to a lot of touring artists making who are recording records. Obviously income comes from merch, label takes all the money, and all that kind of thing. But as a producer, when a band pays you for recording and stuff to work with them, and that say that record charts like top 5 on the Billboard, how much of those royalties do you as a producer like come back? Because I've never really ask anybody that. Like, I've met producers, but I've never really thought to ask them that question. Like, how does the back end of the royalties coming from that album, your work, come in, or is it just that one-time payment to work with you?
It's a really interesting question, actually, and it's an interesting topic. Basically, there's really only 2 ways that I ever made money on an album, well, at least on the back end. So everything I got paid up front was considered an advance on my royalties, right?
Okay.
So I had to recoup that before I would see any royalties. And actually, the record budget would also have to be recouped before I would see any royalties. So the sales, through various ways, and this is all the details are contingent on the specific recording contract and the specific production contract that I have with the artist. And so the way this works, which is really interesting, and actually I produced records for years and didn't really even understand how it worked. So is I would have an agreement with the artist, not with the label. So if I produced, an Anberlin record for Tooth and Nail Records, my producer deal was with Anberlin. And let's say they were getting X amount of points, which is 1% of a profit, or depending on the contract too. But it's all points is the terminology they use. I, as a producer, would ask for a certain number of points that was standard, that was there was precedent for in my life anyway. I basically always got the same percentage on every album I ever did. But that would come out of the artist's points, which is real sneaky of the labels to do that. So the artists are giving up. The artists are paying me. The label isn't even actually paying me at all, because the budget and my advance comes out of their points.
Yeah.
So, and then I happen to be an artist or a producer that co-wrote a lot of songs as well. So more, some artists I didn't co-write at all, technically, and then other artists I did. But so that would be an additional revenue stream. That would come from sales and any usage of the song from that. But all that basically almost completely dried up around in the late 2000s.
Yeah.
When people stopped buying, albums.
Yeah. So bringing it, to the modern day and stuff, the accessibility for someone to make a record is easy. Like, I could, get Pro Tools tomorrow and then probably watch a few tutorials, and the next thing you know, I could make would probably be a bad song, but I could do something with it.
Yep.
So, how have you evolved into the present day as a producer with the technology and stuff, or do you have any old equipment that you still like, sort of like use and stuff because you're so used to it? And with the modern, editing and stuff like that, how have you tried to keep up as somebody who's got started in the '90s doing this stuff?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say, and I think this is coming from having a good touch on reality. I would say that I've always been borderline bleeding edge as far as recording technology goes. I'm always kind of looking for the next thing,
Okay.
and the next thing to make things easier. I was a pretty early adopter of digital. I was an early adopter of Pro Tools. I was an early adopter of like emulation of any kind. Plugins, amps, mics, whatever kind of emulation. Now, granted, like I am fortunate to where I started in an era where I was using tape and consoles and incredible vintage gear, because that was all there was, in the 90s. And so I have a frame of reference as to what that stuff is. But that has been only good to me as far as I'm concerned, the technology part of it. I mean, I have the most upsettingly minimalist, streamlined setup now.
Okay.
And I try to think of ways to make it more streamlined and more minimal. Because when I was younger, I was of the mindset of I was a gear nerd. I was into all the gear. Everything was about the gear and the analog signal chain and the tubes and the warmth and all that stuff. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And there's obviously really cool. It's so fun and just a cool thing. But now I'm more about fluidity and shortening the distance between the conception and the realization of an idea. And if I can do that without any real loss of quality, because for me, it's like the idea is fleeting. Like if I don't get it down, it could go away and I will never know it again. And often too, the first time I get it down is the best time I'll ever get it down.
Yeah.
The first take is often the best take. So I'm willing to sacrifice even 30% of, elite, cool analog warmth factor to get the coolest feel and take, because I can fudge the other stuff, but I can't fudge the authentic, cool idea, take, vibe thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. I don't even use Pro Tools anymore. I use something else, and I'm very, like I said, I'm just really into stark, minimal setup. Now, with some exceptions, my plugin count is by no means stark or minimal. That's kind of where I'm bloated these days. I used to have racks of gear, and now I have, terabytes of ones and zeros.
Yeah, so a little fun question here. You mentioned working with Acceptance early on, and then their latest EP. So, taking just any song off both those releases, doing a speed run with it. How much time does it take you now to like do the same band a song versus when you did it back then? Like the same band back then and now. Like, what's your to do one song? What's your timing on that?
That is a really good question. It's really hard to quantify because, this last batch of Acceptance songs we did over a span of 3 years. So it's hard for me to know how many hours I actually worked on each song because it was so spread out. Before, I would start and finish a record in a 1 to 3 month period, depending on the budget and the album and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I could kind of tell you how long each song took. But with this, I'd have to like go back and look at my calendar and figure out what I was doing that day. I mean, I would imagine it all is relative on what we're shooting for, what we're working with, what the elements are, what the final result vision is of the
Yeah.
song. I can tell you this: we spent less time per song, I would say, on the new stuff than on the record from a few years ago
Yeah.
with Acceptance. That was a very, in some points overly crafted album, which is awesome, and I love
Yeah.
doing records like that. Sometimes some of the Anberlin stuff is like that too, but this batch was more about space and vibe and letting things breathe,
Okay.
and that usually doesn't take as much time. Usually, sometimes it can take just as much time
Yeah.
because you're editing and pulling stuff out and trying new ideas and all that stuff. But I don't know, it's different too because back in the day I had assistants and engineers that I would work with. Some of them are just Matt Carter was one, and Randy Torres was one, and just some of these just amazingly brilliant people, you know absolutely busting their ass like for me,
Yeah.
working. And so we could get, if we're, and we had the studio in Seattle, we had 2 rooms. We could be tracking guitars in one and vocals in the other and just cranking stuff out. So those are different days though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So bringing it back to now and everything with you working on your solo stuff, what's going on with
Mhm.
that? I did hear some of that Bad Christian episodes. I did hear some of the new song. It sounds very ambient and just like a little nice vibe, going on there. So what are you doing with your solo stuff, and when do you plan to like have some stuff coming out with that, as well as what you're doing with this website? Because I saw you released your producer names on all the different categories for the
Mhm.
genres. I thought it was pretty clever. You have like kind of like pen names for that stuff, and so with between your solo stuff and that website, what's your world looking like now, and what are some projects you're working on?
Yeah, I've got I'm doing my first independent release ever. So my last record called Real Life, which came out in 2016, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, was my last record for Tooth and Nail. So this will be my first independent release. I'm kind of going back to an older sound ish. It's kind of got a late 90s, early 2000s thing as far as I'm concerned. For me, it's kind of a mix of my older solo stuff and my band Air that was on Tooth and Nail. I'm having a couple different people play drums on it. My brother's playing some drums remotely in New York, and then my friend Andy King is playing drums in Seattle, and I'm really excited about it. I don't exactly know what's happening with it yet for sure because it's my first independent release. So I will be doing some sort of crowdfund or maybe just pre-order type thing to be able to raise some money to finish it and get it manufactured. And I'm still deciding if I'm going to do vinyl this on the first run or whatever, but I'll be announcing details on that like pretty soon.
Okay.
I'm actually hoping to launch the pre-order at the beginning of September.
Okay.
And I'm real excited about it. And then this gig that I do with Soundstripe is a music licensing company that does a subscription-based music licensing model. So you pay a monthly fee and you have access to their entire catalog. And sorry, I forgot to mute my phone. I've been working with them as a composer full time. I'm actually an employee of the company, and for over 2.5 years now. And they're just the most incredible group of people. Their vision is amazing. Their culture is amazing. What they're doing is so fun and it's so rewarding. And I compose, I don't know, I probably add a, a roughly 100 songs a year to their catalog.
Oh, wow.
So
Are these like full songs or just like little jingles, like little clips and stuff? Or are these like 2-3 minute long like pieces you're doing?
Yeah, no, they're average 3 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's my full-time job. It's what I do, 5 days a week,
Okay.
basically. More or probably more because I really love it. But it's so fun. I've got, like you mentioned earlier, I posted about this really cool announcement that we found out today about the company's just growing really fast, and they're going to be featured in a list of in Inc. magazine. It's on Facebook if you want to check it out. But in that thread, someone was asking like, what name is your songs under? Are your songs under in the catalog? And I had to go back and look, but I have about a dozen monikers that I compose under, because we try to split it up, because I do a whole bunch of different genres of
Yeah.
stuff, and some of them are collaborations with I collaborate with this girl Jessie Villa a lot, who sings in two projects that I've done a bunch of stuff with her solo stuff too. So there's even more than I listed there. But she's just phenomenal. She actually sings on a new yet to be released acceptance song. She
Okay.
does a kind of a duet with Jason on it. It's
Nice.
very cool. And then I sing on a couple of the projects on there, actually three of them. We've got one called Snow Bones with Adrian Walther, and then this new one I'm doing by myself called Click Track Heart, which is kind of electronic alt indie kind of electronic stuff. But the cool thing is most of the songs that I'm doing for Soundstripe will eventually, and a ton of them, probably the majority of them, have been released on streaming. So you can actually go to Spotify or Apple Music or whatever and listen to them too. They'll put them out on those services. And some of this stuff is some of the best stuff I've ever worked on, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this is not jingle music. It's not, your typical catalog stuff.
Yeah.
This is like legit awesome. Like the team of people that work on these songs is, I literally can't believe that they got this group of people because it's all just the most top-notch stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's just a really cool thing. It's really fun to be making, this music. A lot of it gets used on just YouTuber stuff, or and then some of it's in, I had a song in a Audi commercial in Dubai or something crazy like that. Or no, it was a Bentley commercial in Dubai, actually. So there's this really weird range of stuff, but it's fun. It's like so cool to be thinking about what you're making being literally useful to someone else, to these filmmakers, like, that it's got that value where they're like, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for to get my point across with picture. I've always been really fascinated with the relationship of picture and music, so it's fun.
Yeah, instead of seeing an album you made on the Billboard charts, you'll go to the theaters and see it on the box office number one in a movie or something.
Yeah, who knows? And it was kind of time for me. I was feeling pretty burnt out when this opportunity came.
Yeah.
I had moved to Tennessee, and the way records were being made was different, and I was, it's fine and I love it, but I was doing most of the work myself, and just taking a long time, and just, I've been doing this, for over 25 years. So it's a long time.
Yeah. I just turned 30 this year, so there you go. One I guess it's a fun topic. It's what made me reach out to you, just because you were working with Tooth and Nail on a lot of those bands. I grew up listening to Tooth and Nail on a lot of those bands, and a lot of us, we came from the Christian background and stuff. And your Facebook page has just been cracking me up the past month or so with the stuff you share on there and people's reactions and stuff. And so, you as a person, having all these people who probably came from that background, followed your career and stuff, and you like post something that is factually true about whatever topic out there, and these people just start, oh, I can't listen to your music anymore. I can't believe you post this. Where are you at with social media? Right now, it just seems like you're just throwing a middle finger up saying I don't care, which is pretty cool to watch happen and stuff. And it's
awesome.
It's really enjoyable, watching your feed, evolve into that type of stuff. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, this has been really interesting. In the last 3-4 years, I went through the kind of deconstruction thing, and landed somewhere really, I mean, as far as like my personal beliefs and faith goes, which I think is pretty boring and irrelevant. I've landed in a place that I'm very comfortable with. and that is just been the really freeing process. And I've always leaned. I hate the labels, but I even when I considered myself a Christian, which I don't anymore. Even when I did,
Yeah.
I leaned kind of
Yeah.
politically. I was always kind of confused by the alignment of this right-wing conservative political stance and like biblical Christianity. I never quite understood how
Yeah.
those things rectified, but I used to be one of those people that was just really passive about stuff on social media.
Yeah, I can
And
relate to that, definitely.
wouldn't post anything. I didn't want to like rock the boat,
Yeah.
basically. And I was afraid, and but the is my Facebook page is basically always at the 5,000 friend limit, right? And they're almost all people that I don't actually know, obviously, and they're almost all people that come from my long-standing time in the evangelical Christian music world. Like literally, I've been making music in that world as an artist and a producer since '93, basically. So a really long time.
Yeah.
So when I finally was just like, oh, you know what? I should start posting stuff that I think is important, that really resonates with me. It's not just, I'm not just trolling evangelicals, which
Yeah.
I kind of am a little bit, but I'm not just doing that. You know what I mean? Like I'm really, this stuff is stuff that I feel is really important
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Stuff that I've, see on Reddit or the internet. And yeah, the response, I mean, I'll post like a meme and it'll get like, 300 comments or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just, I won't even comment on the meme either. It's just crazy. Like, it's so crazy. But what's weird is like, I generally don't believe that posting stuff on Facebook, especially, really is going to do much to change anybody's mind.
No.
But I've had a few people reach out to me and be like, you know what? I didn't really think of it this way until now. Thanks for posting that. And I'm talking like 3 people maybe have actually reached out to me and said that. And then I've had other people reach out to me, which is awesome. I mean, if it's worth just those 3 people, as far as I'm concerned. And then I've had a lot of other people just like, man, I appreciate that you've evolved and I appreciate your stance. Kind of how when you reached out to me, I've had a bunch of people reach out to me like that. And the other thing is if you actually look at my posts, like the vast majority of people commenting on it is positive and being like, yeah, that's right. So it's cool.
Yeah.
It's something I've never really been someone that even I went on Facebook. I kind of hated Facebook. But the cool thing about all this is I get to add new friends every day because of all the people leaving.
Yeah,
All the
I mean,
people unfriending me.
I think it's because like I was sort of in the same boat. Like even through college in my 20s. Like I said, I just turned 30 this year, and so like in my 20s, I was sort of like, oh, what if somebody from the church I grew up in sees this, or what if somebody sees, and I was kind of like, I don't care, and so it's like, and going home for Christmas now, it's like someone, an old lady in the church who might have seen your post through your family members, like, I really don't like what you said on Facebook, and I'm just like, I only see you like once a year at Christmas, like, and so like I think that's why it got to me and I wanted to reach out to you is because like just seeing that is kind of like where I've been, especially this year with the Black Lives Matter movement and mixing with the LGBTQ stuff and all that, and all that stuff's just molding together into this one thing. And even with the whole Confederate flag and NASCAR type of thing, like you look at Bubba Wallace's Twitter feed or Facebook page, he'll post a picture of him and his dog, and people will just start posting, just rude comments, about all that stuff. So it's like all the stuff coming together, and then you have like just see people, who have been on that side, sort of like, showing up, like, maybe I'm not saying you were on that side, like thinking like they were, but coming from that background, that Christian background, and sort of like speaking up and changing stuff, and people are just kind of like flipped over when they see that kind of stuff, especially from somebody they've I guess put up on a pedestal because you're in the quote unquote Christian music,
Yeah, the yeah, it's so crazy to me how people will be like, it's really entitled thinking, actually. It's like, you owe it to me to have the same beliefs as I do because I projected them on you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's really weird. And yeah, I think I'm a pretty optimistic person in general, and I really believe that this is like birth pangs that we're going through,
Exactly.
growing
Yeah.
pains of real change that's going to happen. And it might not really be really where I would like to see it until, my kid is my age,
Yeah.
But it's happening. And I believe in the younger generation. My son is 13. His generation just seems to be so much more level-headed when it comes to this stuff.
Oh, definitely.
And I believe that they will, someday they will be running the world, and the world will be a better place.
Yeah.
I kind of see it as, so it's awesome.
Yeah, like I said, like I posted them today because I saw this guy who is he used to do like a lot of music videos within the heavy music scene, like anybody from August Burns Red down to like a local band or so. And I was looking up this other guy I see on Twitter a lot. He's this gay conservative who goes around registering people to vote mainly for Trump. But when I looked him up on YouTube, you see actually who this guy was. He was on this former music producer's video podcast or whatever, who is now conservative, but how they were talking and dialoguing was sort of encouraging, because even though they're supporting somebody like like Trump or whatever, like they're going into communities, like wanting to build community centers, letting Black people know their lives matter, sort of like the stuff that progressives are doing, except they're on the other side of the aisle. And so that inspired me a little bit to think like maybe one day we'll live in a time when the parties are merely just reflect a difference of opinion on how to get something done. And everything else like that.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but if there's anything else you got for us, let us know. We appreciate your time tonight, sitting here chatting with us. If there's anything else you want to promote or talk about real quick, we'll be happy to do it.
I can't really think of anything else. I guess just follow me on Instagram, and follow me on Spotify if you would. That would be helpful to me, especially Instagram, if you want to know, when, just more info about my new upcoming record and stuff. And yeah, just appreciate you having me on and having a chat. I'm always up for it.
Yeah, you on TikTok? Is your son got you on TikTok or anything? Follow you there?
I was on there. I mean, I do have an account, and I kind of was like, it was like fast. It was like ambulant, it was like the cringe fest was so fascinating, but then I got burned out on that.
Yeah.
And I just don't. It's not that I get it. Like, my son is into TikTok. I get it, but it doesn't like work with my brain wiring.
I got you. Yeah. I'm past that too. Like, I mean, I haven't even downloaded it, but maybe banned within a month or so. So we'll see. But
yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, man, thanks for your time tonight. Hope you have a good night with your family, and good luck to your work and stuff with Soundstripe. You said Soundstripe,
awesome.
Yeah, Soundstripe. Yeah, good luck with all that, and yeah, we'll catch up another time.
Awesome, appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, you too, man. That'd be great.